Hey, everybody, welcome to the Story Studio podcast.
What's up?
What's up? And I'm a little discombobulated because we're coming off of a break, and we're at a weird time. So the company sort of took 2 weeks-ish, week and a half, I guess it was 2 weeks at the end of the year off. And today we're recording on a Thursday instead of a Friday. So it's very strange. I just got out of my little recording closet. I was recording the Fiction Formula audiobook. And that was frustrating too, because every time somebody would finish mowing their lawn, somebody else would start.
Oh, I hate that.
It's like, I need silence here. I'm
It's
recording an audiobook.
Yard work, it just bugs the crap out of me.
We officially have more live viewers now that it's just the studio listening to us. It's pretty kind of cool there. All right.
And
so
almost 15% of our people are named Dan.
And if you just go with it, starting with D, you can add some others. But today we're going to talk about binge culture for storytellers. I feel like I want to toss that to Sean to explain what that means, since you're such a consumer.
Well, I want to say, Dave, correct me if I'm wrong here. I think it was it House of Cards that was the first time Netflix did that?
I think it was.
I think it was too, where like they had done House of Cards came out of nowhere. I was still living in Cincinnati at the time. And it's not just that Netflix was getting into entertainment, but they just kind of like dropped it. Like, here it is. Here's the entire season. Go binge. And it immediately impacted the culture. It immediately impacted the way Dave and I were writing.
Well, can I clarify something real quick right there? I actually don't know, so this is indeed a question. But before they start, because I assume when you say like binge with House of Cards and stuff, I'm assuming you're saying they produced the entire season and boom, the way that we just take for granted now.
Correct. Yeah, right.
But I'm guessing that there were some before that weren't recorded that way, but that were dropped. Is that sort of an in-between worth mentioning at all? Like the fact that you could have consumed it?
House of Cards was the first show on Netflix.
Yeah, it was the first. So the difference is where people may have consumed in a binge-like way before, there was no one supporting it that way. And I mean, I don't know how much you want to go into the actual topic now versus just kind of introing it, but I think that there were people who watched their shows that way. So for me, I'm actually probably a pretty good example here. I used to like binging shows. Like, I'll find the show and I'll watch it all in a run. So for example, Veronica Mars, I didn't watch live. I found that on DVD and watched, I think the first season I was like, I got to immediately went and bought the next 2 seasons and then binged them on DVD. But I think that the difference was
VHS back in the day.
Once Netflix was like dropping everything at once, like Orange is the New Black is, was their, I think, second big show that came out. And like I watched those all like over a 2-day period. And that was something where you could watch something where it was both new and you could just consume it all. So, I mean, anything more than that, I think actually gets into the topic itself.
Yeah, that would be terrible.
Only in 2013, so it hasn't even been that long.
Yeah, right.
It's been forever.
Yeah, and do you remember, Dave? Do you remember having the actual conversation like, oh my God, people are used to binging. How should we release Yesterday's Gone's next season? And that was like immediate because it did change the behavior. It changed my behavior. Like now, I will prefer most shows. I just prefer to wait until they're done if they're not released that way. Although like The Mandalorian, I watched semi-live. This Is Us, I still watch live.
Does the show have to finish, or is it just by season?
Oh, it's just by season. Like I wouldn't wait for.
I actually knew the answer to that, so I don't know why I asked it, but you sort of made it sound like it was finished. So
yeah, no, Mandalorian was I think it's 8 episodes, and I started watching when they were maybe on episode 5. And I knew that because that's one that we watch as a family, so all of our schedules have to align, and we'd have to not want to watch something else. And it's a 45-minute block instead of 2 hours or 20 minutes or whatever. So I knew we would, be at episode 8 by the time it was done, and it was perfect. We actually finished that the same day that we saw Rise of Skywalker.
How was that? I didn't see that.
kind of a beautiful mess. Like it's everything that's good and bad about J.J. Abrams as a storyteller is very evident in this film. I do like him. I think there are some things missing, but overall, I also think it's really hard to wrap up, the trilogy. And I know they did some retconning with Last Jedi, and it has its issues, but overall, I'm not one of those people who I find much more to like about Star Wars than not like. And I'm one of the people who really like Last Jedi. I know that a lot of people hate that movie. I think Last Jedi is great. And there's a lot of things that I liked about Last Jedi that I thought Skywalker.
Did you like Princess Leia floating through space with no explanation as to why she just miraculously survived it with no big deal?
I did not like that. That was not one of my favorite things.
Oh, she's using the Force. No, it's just happening. It's all good.
Yeah, no, that wasn't one of my favorite parts of the movie. But there were some things that I did really like, including the last shot. I really, really loved the last shot of that movie, and I felt like it got kind of undid with the next movie. But whatever. I also understand. Like, Star Wars is an interesting thing because it's this bajillion-dollar franchise, and I understand from the corporate storytelling angle that Disney kind of has to protect both the fandom and the coffers and the $4.5 billion they paid, and it's just kind of it's a big story. So I do have my issues, but I understand it. And bottom line, we saw it on Christmas Eve and enjoyed it as a family, and that's what I'll always remember.
All right, who's got something cool? I actually kind of have two, so maybe you guys should go, and maybe you'll take one of mine.
All right,
Dave.
I started watching, and reading The Watchmen. I never had actually read the comic.
Did you watch the comic first?
I'm reading the comic, and I only saw like a half hour of the first episode.
From what I understand, it's not an adaptation. It's more of like
it's a sequel.
An expansion, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And so far, fucking love the comic. Saw the movie, but of course I forget the movie. Absolutely love the comic, and the show. Like the first opening half hour, I just know I'm gonna love this show so much. So, that's my something cool. Maybe I'll binge it all before next week.
Oh, you should. It's high on my list. I really want to watch that.
It's a bold opening episode, and from what I understand, like the way this show unfolds, they kind of troll the anti-social justice warriors to really bitch about it, and then they like flip the script on them, and so I'm waiting to see how it goes, but I think they really pushed some political buttons, and I'm curious to see how it all plays out and how it was received.
Well, Bonnie says it just gets better and better as the season goes on, and that it has an amazing ending too.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward.
I that's really, really high on my list. It's pretty violent though, right?
Oh yeah, it opens with children in jeopardy.
Yeah, I feel like that might be one that I'll be watching on my own. But I just finished. Here's my something cool. I just finished The Witcher, which I did watch that on my own.
They haven't been promoting that at all.
Are they?
Oh no, I'm being sarcastic. It's like so in my face every second.
Yeah, I don't know, but it's odd because I liked it a lot more than I expected to. A lot more.
Did you like Game of Thrones?
I do not like Game of Thrones as much as the world does.
Okay, so, yeah. See, I'm asking that because I didn't care about Game of Thrones.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fantasy guy, actually.
Neither am I.
But I got a lot of ideas for things we could do in the Dream Engine world while watching this. And it kind of like lit my fire in a way that I didn't expect. And I like it. I'll say this. I think Game of Thrones is probably a better show than The Witcher. But I have a better time watching The Witcher. And I made it through 3 seasons of Game of Thrones, and then I like stopped caring. And The Witcher, I'm like ready for season 2. Like,
is it unrelentingly bleak like Game of Thrones? That's what stops me. Is I'm like, my soul's gonna be crushed. Yeah, fuck that.
Yes, but in a fun way. So like what it feels like is like hyper.
So it's like being Dave. It's
Yeah,
destructing
well, okay,
your
It's
so-
soul.
less
It's fun.
political machinations.
Yes, yeah. Well, no, there's that, but it's
But
always
not
with
nearly
like,
as much.
not
I
The
don't
cast
I
is
don't
way
mind political
smaller.
machinations. It's the mass slaughter and no hope sort of things.
oh, there's mass slaughter for sure. But it's I don't know. There's a sense of the show is having a better time with itself, I guess.
You know what I'm talking about, though, right? Like it's that real glib, like you get used to a character and then they die and then somebody else dies tragically. It's all tragedy. It's not about the violence. I don't mind violence.
Yeah, no, there's tragedy and the whole world is at stake. But I mean, the first episode is not very good, and then the second episode is mildly better. The second episode is where it does get better for me because they explain magic in a way that's cool that I like, and they introduce this mage character named Yennefer that is a big part of the story, and she's interesting. And it's episode 4 that got me, and I was like, oh, this is what they're doing, because there's 3 different timelines that and I can't even, I guess as a storyteller, I have a lot of respect for what they had to do, because from what I understand, they took a bunch of short stories, novels, and video games. And they said, here's the story we want to tell with these elements. And they kind of had to set the stage in the first, in the first season. And so it's got 2 things going for it, like in an X-Files kind of way. It's got the overall mythology that moves forward each episode, but then each one is also kind of like a monster of the week thing going on. And so they're self-contained. You can watch an episode and just get the story for that. But then there is the larger story. And one takes place over like 70 years. You know what, Johnny? It does something that we do in The Beam, where the characters in The Beam are like in their 80s, but they look 30s. So you can kind of fuck with, visually what it would look like. And because there are characters in the show who don't age like normal humans, they pull some of that same stuff.
They
Would I have to
basically
watch
did
it by my-
they did origin stories before they drop you into the story proper, and then the story proper really the timeline will be more linear in season 2.
Yeah.
Would I have to watch this on my own?
Yes.
Yeah.
There's
For
sex
sure.
and violence.
There's
It's just,
lot of, it makes Game of Thrones look kind of, well, maybe not. I stopped watching Game of Thrones, but
would I like it?
I think so. I'm surprised to say, like, on the first few episodes, I would not have recommended it to you. But by the end, I'm like, yeah. And there's a lot of things that I want to go back and watch it because I can see how well placed some of the stuff was. So
Yeah, fantasy for me suffers from the same thing as superheroes. Like when you just say, it's like what troubles you about billionaire romance. He's a billionaire. Why? He just is. Like that's what I don't like about superpowers or usually fantasy. They're just magical. So that's interesting to hear that you think I'd like it.
yeah, because it is. They do explain magic, like they explain, how it works, and they have like this. They're basically putting these. There's like magic school.
Yeah, I'll check it out. I'll check it
They're
out.
something cool they
mutating
do.
children to fight monsters.
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
good.
Dave, how many episodes have you seen?
And how much did they pay you for your life story?
I've only seen the first episode so far, but I'm familiar with some of the stories and very little of the video game. But I know all about it because, like, I followed it forever. So it's one of those things that I know about.
Yeah, there's a premise for a fantasy story that I don't even know if Johnny will remember it, but I pitched him a few years ago. That's like, it's a fantasy world that I could see really working with Johnny's sensibilities. And so, yeah, I would love to see that. Bonnie, if you're listening, so Bonnie said that the show committed like a couple of unforgivable. Oh wait, here it is. The Witcher had 3 strikes in the first 5 minutes for me, and that's as far as I got. I would love to know what those strikes were. So,
But not on the chat. Like do that some other time.
No, I meant hit us in the chat. I'm curious. All right.
Okay. Well, since we're at half hour and we started late, so it's not that bad. But do we want to move on, or are we doing more Witcher?
No,
I didn't know if you wanted to like wait for Bonnie's responses.
Well, no, we can move on, but I think that like we're talking about binge watching. I'm sure Witcher will come up in another conversation. So if it's there, it's a good ingredient. But yeah, we can move on.
Okay. Why are Something Cool is always something we watch, though? I've actually noticed that. Like, it's
With
seldom.
time to read.
Yeah, I mean, I have the time, but it takes a long time because we're authors, and I've noticed that. Like we always talk about things that we've watched, which I guess you can do faster.
Another something cool was, that we started a something cool channel in Slack. And have you guys seen how lit up that is? Dave, you might actually like it. It's a place where you can.
I don't even know if I'm invited to it.
Well, you just have to find it. There's no invite to it. It's just like you have to go get it on your own proactively.
Yeah, but it's worth it. Like I've seen already, like, oh, I got to add that to my list. I got to add that to my list.
Yeah, my list is already so long. I don't know how I don't need more suggestions at this point, unfortunately. My something cool is opposite end of the spectrum. It's comedy. Have you guys heard of Letterkenny?
Mm-mm.
No, I hadn't heard of it either. But there's like 6 seasons. It's a Canadian show, and
what's it called?
It's called Letterkenny.
Letterkenny?
Like letter and Kenny, but shoved together. And it's the name of a town. It's a small town. Neve just popped it in. So
apparently Neve knows this show. It's the way she was so fast there.
It's really fucking funny. Like it's funny. It caught me by surprise in the way that I'm Sorry did. In that, you know how I said I really like I'm Sorry because they're not trying for any serious messages at all. Like it's a pure escape. Like it's just them being stupid. Well, this is the same thing, and it takes place in this really small town in Canada, and there are 3 groups. So there's the Hicks, the Skids, which are basically like goths or like mods or something. And then there's the hockey players. And it's just about the stupidest shit that they get into. And we're like 3 seasons in already, and we just started it over the break. And they're just half-hour shows. And the character work is just wonderful. I mean, it's not deeper.
How many episodes?
Comedy. How many episodes? I think it's 6 seasons. I don't know how many seasons in an episode, but I'm going to guess a normal like 12, 13, something like that.
Oh, so it's not network where there's like 24.
I don't think so. I think it's 12 or 13, but I don't know because we've just been kind of burning through them, and it's just totally light and fun. And so we've been digging the hell out of that.
Did you say you have 2?
No, I'll save the other one because so many times I come up empty. So I made a note, and I'll give it next week.
Yeah, I've got a bunch too.
I actually haven't been binging them. I've just been watching a couple a night, which I guess is binging. I guess we just stick on one episode.
But it's been 3 weeks or something with a lot less work. There's just more time to consume.
Yeah, but we don't watch them during the day or anything. Like it's pure nighttime, whatever. But anyways.
Okay, so we did spend a lot of time over the break binging. I mean, that's great to just roll into the topic. Why is it that people love to binge? I mean, that wasn't not possible for us growing up. We didn't get to watch TV like that. There was no pausing live TV or DVR or buying seasons of shit. You can like
videotape an entire season of X-Files and watch it all in a weekend. I've done that.
You could, but binging was not a culture thing, right?
Yeah.
You know what was the biggest ball buster with binging was back when Netflix did DVDs and not streaming. And so you'd binge, and then you get to the end of a disc.
Yeah,
you'd be like, motherfucker, now I have to send it back in.
Right. I mean, that is seriously, I used Veronica Mars as an example because that was a time when like, Ethan and Haley are both really little, and that was how I could binge. Netflix didn't have their streaming thing, and, I bought all 3 of those seasons, so we could just binge them. When Cindy was pregnant, I bought her all 6 seasons of Sex and the City on DVD, so she could binge those.
We binged those on DVD.
Yeah. We had all 10 seasons of Friends on DVD.
We binged those nightly.
So like yes, you could binge, but streaming just made it easy. Binging made it like not just for the fringe people, but like everybody.
I think it's hilarious because recently Friends left Netflix because they paid.
Yeah, that pissed me off.
Yeah, okay, you're what amuses me. Like all these people are complaining on Twitter, like you took Friends away. I'm like, no, they didn't. They just didn't want to pay for it again. Fuck off. It's been gone forever.
Whatever the reason is, they did take it away. And whether I understand the reason or not, I'm allowed to not like that they did.
You don't need to watch it again. You've seen it.
I'm totally with you on this, Dave. Johnny's
response to the
streaming wars I find amusing because I think like it's so much better than what we ever had with
I hate the
cable.
streaming wars.
And it's so cheap. Like we've never had more content for less money. And the fact that people are like bitching about it, it's just like, wow, our world is just super entitled, especially as content creators. Like we should be excited by the streaming wars. We should be energized by the streaming wars because like there's never, it's amazing how many tiny little shows there are that just are so niche and they never would have had an audience. So have you watched Easy? Either of you? So
don't know.
it's a Netflix show. They're 30 minutes. They're not quite comedy. They're not quite drama. It's been on my my list ever since there was just one season out, and now there's 3. I never watched it, and I even watched the trailer a couple of times. But it's this real disconnected trailer that I didn't realize what it was, and then we watched it, and they're 30-minute snapshots of like people in conflict in a relationship. And they're usually...
Oh, I don't want to watch it.
No, it's great. And the conflict is usually around something sex-based. So like a couple, like they're falling out of love with each other, or like one is cheating on the other, or something. But it's basically 4 seasons, dude. So there's all these like it's a larger world that they all share and inhabit.
Yeah, that's why I don't hang out with people. I really don't want to.
Anyway, the idea that there's like all these, all these very individual kinds of stories being told that couldn't have been told without the streaming wars. And, the most you're going to pay is like 10 or so bucks a month for that. And all the stories they're going to produce. I think it's amazing.
Each. It's not $10 a month. It's $10 a month each. It's something else to subscribe to and something else to subscribe to. And right back at basic cable.
Yes, but so different. And like the thing that amuses me a lot is that like if you get all the major ones, the amount that they said is it's less than Indiana Jones and Raiders of the Lost Ark cost on VHS when it came out. Right? Per month, you can get Hulu, HBO Max, Disney Plus. Netflix,
cable got so damn expensive. I mean,
right, but for under $100, you're getting all this on-demand streaming shit. Like the value there is amazing.
I'm curious. So I don't subscribe to everything that I want because I don't have time to watch it all. So it's a waste of money. And then every month I see a charge. I'm like, well, fuck, I didn't watch anything. So I wonder how many people will just subscribe to 1 or 2. And like they'll switch when the new show comes on that they want to just catch it all.
Well, probably a lot of people. There was if there's an article about streaming, like I'll click on it. Like I'm very curious about the wars. I'm very curious about the economics behind it, the future casting, all of that. And they found so in the first month that Disney Plus came out, Netflix lost 1 million subscribers,
which is really nothing.
It is something. That's substantial because that's over $100 million a year, right? Like,
and they're operating at like how many $1 billion debt?
Right. Like if it's another million next month, like they're gonna have a problem, right? Because they're overspending on content. So that's an interesting discussion anyway. But if you've got like where does it slow down? So with they already lost the million there, but then now Disney Plus, The Mandalorian ended. And people are pulling out of Disney Plus and waiting for new shows to come in. So it doesn't matter that Disney Plus has 30 years of The Simpsons and like every movie they ever did. There are still some people who are not. I don't think these are people with families necessarily, because if you've got a family, fuck, $7 a month and like all the Disney shit is there. That's great value. But for like people who are just buying it for Star Wars, for example. They're canceling, or Star Wars and Marvel, they're canceling and waiting for new content.
Anybody buying it from Marvel, though, they've probably, if they're Marvel fans, they've already seen all the movies, so they don't need to watch it again. So when they start rolling out some Marvel shows, and I think they're going to do something with the ones that were canceled on Netflix, when they start doing that, then you'll probably have more Marvel fans joining and staying on.
Yeah, I just think of it as a business creativity expense. Like I want to watch something when I watch something, and so all the major streaming things, I'm going to subscribe to those. We're going to watch stuff as a family. We're going to talk about it. I'm going to talk about it with, and also any storyteller I'm working with. If they're saying I watch this show, it's important to me, to this tone. I want to be able to watch that show and have the same vocabulary with them. So like all the streaming stuff for me as a storyteller, $100 a month, and I can watch all the stories I want.
So you have every streaming service?
I have every streaming service. Yeah.
You have Stars? You have
no,
Cinemax?
no. I mean the major ones. So I've got HBO, Showtime, Hulu, Netflix, and Disney Plus. And I just picked up Apple TV because I actually, that's the interface. I have Apple TV, and they said, "Oh, you have a free year." And I was like,
fuck
okay.
you. I had 7 fucking days.
Yeah, no. So
I don't understand that. Sean's Apple TV isn't new. And Dave, I thought you said that you had to have a new device.
It for somebody that has a new device. I don't know how he got a year.
Yeah, I don't either because I haven't bought.
Maybe you buy so many fucking.
Because I haven't gotten this. I haven't gotten that notice either. Did you get something in the mail, or because I have an Apple TV?
No, I just turned on Apple TV and it said your phone is you have a credit for 1 year, which is crazy because I haven't bought a new phone in. Oh, Ethan replaced his phone.
There you go.
But he got that's funny because he got a refurb and they're still counting it. So whatever. Yeah, we started watching the morning show on that. We're 4 episodes in.
Well, so what about binging though? So what about the behavior of like, what does this mean for us as storytellers? I mean, I binge everything, right? I mean, I guess depending on how I know I pushed back, but yes, I'm binging. But that said, there was a certain something that's never going to come back with that episodic, like make you wait sort of a thing.
Cooler talk.
Yeah, I mean, and just it is a little unsatisfying, I guess, a little to think that like, you know, they spent a lot of time and effort on this, and that's something that would have been a year's worth of content. And it's just, I can just imagine the creators being like, well, fuck, that's gone. Now we got to do it again. Maybe they aren't thinking that at all. And they probably aren't. But that idea of like, let's all wait, let's watch on the same time schedule. That's gone. And the question is, does it matter?
Yeah. And I wonder how much, because when you had a season of something, then you had, those 4 or 5 months before the new season rolled out.
Right.
Network television, they have more episodes, they spaced it, and you didn't have to wait as long for the next season. Now they don't know if a show's going to do well. You might have to wait a year depending on the streaming service. And something else I've noticed, at least on Netflix, they seem to cancel stuff after 3-4 seasons.
Yeah, 3 seasons seems to be their
whether it's doing decent or not. I wonder if it's because they can't maintain interest, because I think that was the problem with some of the Marvel shows, regardless of the quality of them. And I think some of them, got better as they went on. The interest waned because people had to wait forever and nobody was talking about it anymore. So,
that's a really good point. So in the binge culture, one thing that has absolutely happened is that there's a really brief half-life now for the interest in a show.
Right, it's like KDP Select. It's the same lament. It's like, I wonder if entertainment just becomes really commoditized simply because you're done with it in a few weeks.
Well, there is a lot of that. And so Disney Plus very specifically is like, yeah, we're not playing that game. The Mandalorian was, you waited the week. And there is something really old-fashioned about that. You got that water cooler conversation back in that way. I
really like that.
Yeah, I do too. I think as storytellers, you kind of have to think like, what is the best? Well, there's a few questions. There's what is the best for this particular story that we're trying to tell? And what is the relationship I want our audience to have with this story? So like going back to season, whatever it was, with Dave and I, when we were following up Yesterday's Gone, and that was our question because the binge culture was already there. And we found like, okay, what do we do? Because if we release these, we basically wanted to give people the choice. And what we found is they could buy it week to week to week, or they could just wait until it was all done and buy it at once. And there was like no contest. People just bought it when it was done. And we actually lost money by the week to week to week strategy. Do you remember that, Johnny? We were already all...
No, I do remember. That's actually around the time that I came on board, and it does. It's a little like, every once in a while somebody will tell an old person sort of story, like one of those back in my day, where it was like, I I really wanted a bike and my dad wouldn't give me a bike. So I had to wait and mow lawns, and that you had to wait so long, and then it was better because you had to wait. And I think that there's something that comes with, we used to have to wait week to week to see, oh my God, something amazing just happened. And I think that viewers tended to appreciate it more. And I think that as a creator, one of the things that I am just a little concerned. Oh, that's good. I turned on my music. One of the things that I'm just a little bit concerned about is, we're trying not to play the select game, the KDP select game. And of course we are but I still hate it. Like, I wish it wasn't a thing. It pisses me off. But the reason is because the relationship to the books is just different. Like when you're churning through books that fast, if you're kind of a churn and burn sort of reader, I don't know that any one thing stands out. And so that was at least the thinking was, if we try to play a longer term value game and try not to be as disposable, that's the game we're trying to play. And with streaming, I think it's some of the same things are in play. Is I think that you're getting a lot of that. I've subscribed, I'm paying this much per month, I'm going to watch as much as I humanly can. And then, well, there was this great show that I watched, but I have no idea what it is because it's been buried under 10 others.
Yeah, I use it as discovery because I know that there's this big, giant treasure chest, and it's really easy to get buried. And so most of everything I watch comes from a personal recommendation. And I mean, we've got a studio full of storytellers. We're all watching shit, and we all have very high standards and high criteria. By the way, Bonnie gave her reasons for The Witcher, and you're 1,000% right about everything you said. Basically, it was a very cliche opening. And no, Bonnie, I don't think it's good enough for you to make time to watch it. There's so many better shows than The Witcher. The Witcher for me was just better than I expected. And that's a fun thing too. Like in the binge culture, what do you do to get somebody to watch? Not just because it's the next thing in line, but because it's actually commanding your attention. And that's something that, as storytellers internally, we put a lot of attention into that. Our cliffhangers, we craft them with care. We really want people to come into the journey that we're inviting them on. And I think that we have 3 different ways of serializing, and we're experimenting with all of them this year and next year. One is just the thing that I think Dave and I got really good at, and we transported over to when Johnny and I started working together, and that was writing something as a serial, but not releasing it that way, because. Well, there's a few reasons. It's readers keeping track of, the story book to book to book, but it's also the whole thing with the model being broken on Amazon, where it's 99 cents isn't a good price for any of us, but $2.99 doesn't really work out for the reader. So that is always something to, figure out. But the other one, which is, releasing them, but writing something and then releasing it week to week to week, and then writing something and releasing them month apart. So those are all very different modes of writing and releasing, but I think they're all worthy of exploration. And it kind of depends on your story, on the relationship you have with your audience, and what your actual game is. So if you look at the way Netflix puts their shows out versus the way Disney Plus puts their shows out, or actually Apple TV is another example. They've not done the binge thing either. And in fact, they're the opposite of Netflix in pretty much every way, because they're also not like, we will drown you in content. They're like, we've got 3 or 4 shows and they're really good. I mean, whether they are really good or not, like that's a different conversation because I haven't seen them. And I've heard like C is kind of shitty, but it's one of those that like, actually a lot like The Witcher, where critics don't like it, but audiences do. But Jason Momoa is like probably the reason a lot of people like that show. Does he have
his shirt off? I'm there.
I think so. So I'm not really sure. But I think that like Apple TV and Disney Plus have a very different game plan than what Netflix does or what Hulu does. So I think you have to look at, if you're looking at what can I get from a storyteller.
Hulu did some shows weekly.
Right, but don't you think that they're kind of experimenting to see what works?
Yeah, but I mean, they've done it with some of their. They did *Handmaid's Tale*.
Yeah, *Handmaid's Tale*.
The Act.
Well, *Handmaid's Tale* I think *Handmaid's Tale* was like a hybrid. It launched with the first 3 episodes and then went to weekly, which I think is smart. because they got those people who want to binge.
And I thought there was talk that Netflix was going to do that with a few shows and experiment with it. So
I heard that also.
I think they have to do it with some of the shows.
I think it makes something bigger. It makes it more important.
It gives it more value.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. HBO Max is the next one coming out next year.
They're not going to release their shit in one giant
diarrhea
bowl.
No way. No, I think Netflix might be the outlier here, because I think that we're seeing that.
It reminds me of that. Do you remember the membership site? I think it was called Digital Access Pass or something. This is a little nerdy, but it was, because it dripped content, whatever it is that I'm thinking. And that was the whole thinking. Like, if you had a membership site with a ton of content and somebody could join, consume it all, and then leave next month, and you wanted a continuity, right. That was exactly the same problem that it seems like. Now, obviously, the volume is shit on like Netflix. I've watched all Netflix has, now I'm quitting. Like, that's not really a thing. But to Dave's point about like dumping everything, that could be a concern.
Well, it's like, I mean, all of us came up in the blogging days, right? And you could work really, really, really hard on a blog post. It could be the best thing you've ever written, but then it gets published, and a week later, no one gives a shit, and it's buried, and you'll never see that post again. And there's a little bit of that with Netflix. You see like some really good shows that came out a few years ago,
right.
And they're in the dustbin of history. And so I do think that there's value in, it's not that you want to copy that model and say, oh, because Netflix has this binging model and people love that binging model, I'm going to copy that. It's figuring out what people love about that binging model and trying to build it into the stories that you tell.
I have the answer for them.
Oh, all right. I would like to subscribe to your newsletter. Let's hear the answer.
It's called, yes, the answer. Dave's answer. If I was Netflix, I would go to where people are already talking about TV shows, and that is YouTube. There's a ton of channels devoted to any show you like. There's people talking about it on YouTube. Netflix should do kind of like what The Walking Dead does with their thing. They have the Talking Dead after it. The shows they want to generate buzz around, they ought to have an after show.
That's a great idea, Dave.
And do on a weekly thing. You'll get people talking about it. You get people where they're actually watching online, because Netflix is competing with YouTube. Netflix is competing with the internet in general and games and all that shit. It's not just TV shows competing with TV.
No, I think that's great, Dave.
Well, I think one of our biggest things that we've talked about a lot
is my check now.
is that we want stories that endure. Like, we want legacy. Like, these are the things that we talk about. We're long-term, not short-term. So, I mean, we're talking about visual entertainment here. We're talking about things the TV shows that you watch, but entertainment's entertainment. There's going to be some overlap in behaviors and what people expect. And we are really increasingly in an on-demand, I want it right now. And if it takes 2 seconds too long to load, I'm pissed off. And if I have to wait a week, then I'm pissed off sort of culture. So what does that mean for us as creators if we want to, I mean, I don't want to dumb anything down and like, okay, well, I'll make my stories really short and super hooky so that people will want to consume them or something. But I think, like, what is the task of somebody who wants to create legacy material that doesn't get relegated to the dustbin of history in this modern culture?
Okay, so you're asking, so it's basically,
how do you create legacy in a more faster sort of world where things just get
the same question that
vanished.
We wrestle with all the time. How do we fight KDP Select?
True,
right?
But it's increasingly the fact that it's happening because I mean, books are less mainstream than visual today. Like, that's just the truth. People read less than they watch. So the fact that it happens in our main entertainment, our main TV, our main movies, I would say is actually, if that's a problem, then it makes it a bigger problem. It's a symptom of a larger problem.
Yeah, go ahead, Dave.
Nope, so, I was just saying, you got to break out and be bigger than the rest. I mean, that is how TV shows achieve their cult status. Nobody gave a shit about Firefly when it was on TV. It was canceled because nobody was fucking watching it. And now people are jizzing in their pants over how great it was, the next thing to God. So it depends on it becoming bigger than other shows.
It's also a little bit like the whole one for us, one for them thing. I mean, Netflix is definitely doing that. They have their They have their garbage shows. They're just like, all right, let's just put this out. But they have given money to auteurs. They had last year they had Roma. This year they had Irishman and Marriage Story. And, they are trying to put out some prestige stuff as well as, their bingey stuff. And so I think that Netflix is trying to prove like, look, we can do it all, including Michael Bay, apparently. Have you seen any of that 6 Underground?
No, well, Michael Bay is pretty much turn entertainment or anything. He's definitely built to last.
Well, I think that what they're trying to say is there is no longer anything you can get at the theater that we're not going to be able to provide some kind of, they're trying to close that gap.
The Irishman.
Yeah, The Irishman. I mean, Scorsese literally could not get the money to make his movie anywhere else. Netflix stepped up, gave him $100 million, and he made The Irishman. So that's pretty impressive that, they had $100 million.
I'm waiting for them to give Quentin Tarantino money to make like a 15-hour movie.
They better do it soon. He's only got one left.
He'll come back.
I could see him moving into TV for sure. I could totally see him moving.
Yeah, he said he's done with movies. He'll do a 15-hour movie as a TV show.
I could totally see that.
Okay, man, this is a movie in 15X.
Exactly.
I could absolutely see it. There's apparently a 4-hour cut of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which will likely make it to Netflix in the same way Hateful Eight was, just divided into 4 episodes.
Oh, good. More Quentin.
Dude, fuck you. Have you seen it? It's really good.
No, I haven't. Good movies do not last long at the theater where I am.
Okay, here's what you do. It's got to be
trash popcorn that the yokels will enjoy.
I bet you they love the fountain there.
That lasted a day. It wouldn't even last a whole week. It was
all right. Here's your solution. It's 2020. Move to Austin, and then you and me and Johnny will have movie day like once a month.
I would love that.
All right, so let's make that happen. Angry Birds with a 1-minute peeing scene.
That was at my theater for a year and a half.
It's still playing.
It's a marquee title.
Yeah, so Joel says, I love long movies and long books and long form podcasts. I need to feel like I'm making space and time to consume. Yeah, I agree. I think that having like shows that really breathe, or like being able to consume a whole story. So one thing that binge watching does is allows you to see these huge stories. So I just finished Mad Men for the 3rd time through because I watched it with Haley. And we were able to watch all 7 seasons in, I want to say like a 3 or 4 month period, maybe a little longer than that. But that's like watching it that way. Mad Men is like this epic American novel. It does have that feel. And, if you had to watch that over a 7-year period, it's just different than watching it over a 7-month period.
Well, maybe this will serve as a good sort of final wrap up on this. And that's, how do we touched on this a little bit, and maybe sort of a final word, like how do we stand out? So like Joel's sentiment on longer books and longer, like I don't think that's mainstream. Like I think that Joel is more of the type of reader that I would like, but I think that there's probably a lot more that are more popcorn and more like I need it now and that sort of thing. So how do we make the stories that we want to make and have them be successful in an increasingly on-demand, bingey sort of world?
I think that Dave hit it where he's like, you just have to be better than the rest. And it's not a sexy answer, but it is an answer.
Sorry, let me push back on that a little bit, because we all know that there's lots of really great stuff that goes fucking nowhere because
yes, but
it doesn't get
attention.
So the way is, yes, you have to get attention, but also I think you have to be intentional about the way you get attention. So if you look at, we each individually, me and Johnny and me and Dave, have bingy type things that we're building for either very late this year or next year. And they are things that we would hope that will be on streaming sometime in the future. And the way we're constructing those is definitely the way we want to do it, the stories that we want to tell. And so we've kind of earned the ability to do that by the other stories that we're telling that are a little more popular, So I think that you can't expect to do it overnight. I don't think you can follow the Tarantino model where he basically just was able to do the kind of thing he wanted to do from the beginning, and it was big.
He
And
was
actually,
also in a different world, though. That's the thing, right?
well,
Like, don't you feel like we're almost past the age of the blockbuster? Not totally, but fewer, right? Like you've made the point about how there aren't big rock bands really anymore.
Yeah, they're right. The day of the rock star is over. That's very true. And for movies, I think that we're not seeing. So here's the genre that's dead, pretty much, is the comedy, the Will Ferrell, right? The basically the date night comedy, right, where you go and you would see something like Will Ferrell or I don't know, Melissa McCarthy, or just like the big budget.
Daddy's Home 5.
You like a comedy that has big names in it that are like they cost $30 million.
Medea takes a shit.
But all of a sudden, that's the kind of film that Netflix can do. Like they can do that. Do you know what the number one downloaded or watched movie on Netflix was last year?
Adam Sandler's movies.
The one with Adam Sandler and Jennifer Aniston.
Oh my God! I
don't remember what it's called, but I
could not
know
get
I've seen
through
it.
like 10 minutes of
it. I watched 10 minutes of it too, and I could not watch it. Murder mystery. Thanks, Neve. Yeah,
I wanted to murder myself.
I'm like, I'm out. This is really, really bad. And I didn't even call out. I didn't tap out on that when Cindy did. And she's way more patient with that shit than I am. So we were just like, this is not good. And
I would rather than watch that movie, I would rather put my dick in a car door and just slam it like 5 times.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, I didn't think it was that bad, but
it was that bad.
It was bad. And
we're going to call him on one of these statements at some point.
All
right, Dave, we got a car. You got your dick?
That's the number one thing that was downloaded. Like, that's crazy, but it also tells you a lot about the consumer. So if you don't want to make because Dave doesn't ever, they could back a dump truck to Dave's house. He would not have the desire, nor would he be capable of writing Adam Sandler drivel. He just wouldn't be able to do it.
Oh, I could. I would just go.
So, like, you don't want to make that. But I think that if there's... I want to have a whole show that's just Dave doing Adam Sandler impersonation. That's pretty good, Dave.
Yeah, I'm not a big Adam Sandler fan either.
Yeah, me neither. Although I do want to see the Jewel Heist movie he's in right now. I think that looks good.
Yeah, I like when he does serious stuff. I hate the because it's just so lowbrow, stupid, not even trying.
Yeah, he's fantastic in Punch Drunk Love. He's really good in Spanglish. Like, he's capable. It's just you never see it. But yeah, Punch Drunk Love's amazing. So anyway, like Joel Zabadee-doo. Yeah, so I think that you have to know what you want and then know how to get there. And so, both me and Dave and me and Johnny have written, popcorn stuff, but we've also written stuff that's really important to us. And we got, I think, really focused last year on how to differentiate that stuff and how to build the right bridges. Oh, that's what I was saying. Tarantino, I read a book about Tarantino over the break. And one of the things, like, he acknowledges, like, I was just really lucky. I would have been hired. I would have been the guy hired to make like remakes of Mannix or whatever. And I would have been happy with that. I would have been thrilled to be a director who was just able to work in the business. But Reservoir Dogs clicked, and then Pulp Fiction clicked, and then he just got to do whatever he wanted. And I don't think that the studio system or the book industry is designed that way. But I think that it is designed in a way where if you prove yourself, you always get another chance. And so whether you're telling stories through a visual medium or just with words, I think if you connect with your readers and you include them on the journey and you take them, where you want to take them, and you understand what it is that people love about great stories and binging, then you can really evolve yourself that way.
Oh, I forgot there's something cool that I wanted because we were off for a couple weeks. Mr. Robot finally ended, and it ended so fucking perfectly. Perfect ending for an almost perfect show. Well worth your binge whenever, it's available.
Haley and I just started that over break. We're on episode 5 of season 1.
Okay. Oh, wait till you get to episode 8.
Yeah, no, I've seen seasons 1 and 2 before,
Okay.
but I promised you that I would watch it all now. And so I invited Haley on the journey, and she was like, hell yeah. So
Has she figured out the twist without spoiling it for our own audience?
No, I don't think so.
Cool.
She would have piped up if she has.
Awesome.
So
We're gonna find out Dave has some sort of Mr. Robot sponsorship.
I believe that. I think they might
Sam
sponsor
Esmail is
it.
behind him, like, Dave, don't forget to mention.
I would watch
forgot.
anything Sam made. He's proven himself. Just fucking amazing.
What's he
Dave,
done
more superlatives.
besides,
More superlatives, Dave.
What's he done
That's Sam
besides
behind
Bad
you.
Robot and not Bad Robot,
Bad Mr. Robot?
Mr. Robot, and Homecoming.
Oh, that's all I know of, and that's all he needed to do. I mean, he could have just done Mr. Robot. He proved himself very capable, and like the stuff is like it's seeded from the beginning. I don't think he made shit up as he went along at all.
Or he's doing the shit that we sometimes do where it looks like it was seeded from the beginning, but really you're just finding
I'm with
something.
Johnny on this. I think he had some. I think he had.
When you get to the end, the way it fucking there's no way. Everything is so perfectly done. I can't think of a single mistake or something that feels like it was shoehorned in.
Wow. No. All right. Well, I'm there.
I need to see that to watch it, but I've had that experience too, where it's like, oh man, it's all coming together as if I planned it.
Right. See, but Johnny, Dave doesn't get that because he doesn't write that way. Like he doesn't. But seriously, dude, like there have been times when it seems like we had to have planned it.
Do you remember when the defining thing at the end of Unicorn Western 9 was just a random thing in 3?
Yes, of course. Yes, because that is how we write.
And Mr. Robot is almost as good as Unicorn Western.
Almost.
I got past the wedding scene on Mr. Robot.
What would Dave think? Dave, what would you think if Sam Esmail decided to take on Unicorn Western?
I would watch it.
Okay.
He would
What
write
about Redacted?
Yeah, whatever he did, man. And there are red herrings in the show. There are some storylines that you're not sure if they were meant to kind of fizzle out that way, or it was just the nature of the beast of the show. So it might not be perfect in that way, but the important things were all there, and they all click, and they all make sense in such a beautiful way that I can't think of a show I like the ending of better at the moment anyway.
Not even The Sopranos.
No, not even The Sopranos.
Well, yeah, I'll be caught up soon, Dave. I can't totally binge it because I can only watch it with Haley, but we'll be caught up soon. I'm excited to talk to you about it.
All right,
so I remember it by then.
Right,
that
you
is
won't
a
remember.
danger.
So a couple of announcements to conclude us out here, in case we didn't spell this out at the beginning, but you may have figured it out from context. We aren't going to be doing live shows anymore for the wider world, just because nobody came. Like it wasn't worth the restriction of the schedule. We love you 3 or 4 people who came every time, but we're not going to plan our whole schedule
wedding night
around you, right? So we're broadcasting. We're broadcasting internally. So when you hear us referring to people and stuff, it's because our people, the Sterling and Stone people, are getting it live. So just sorry if that's disappointing. It didn't end up making sense, the cost benefit. And then the other thing is that next week will be a really good show. So be sure to check it out. We're going to have John O'Matt on, and he is the writer of the Savannah Bananas TV show. We had Jesse Cole on a little while ago to talk about it. Was his story.
Oh,
and
he's going to be so excited to meet Dave. So excited.
And everybody's going to love Jono. Like he's just so lovable. He's just so wonderful.
You know about me?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Everybody we ever meet knows about you, Dave.
Oh,
he'll
God.
probably do something perfect to ingratiate himself to Dave. Like you never see it coming, but then he'll do this one little thing. And you're like, oh, I wish I was that thoughtful. You're much nicer than I am.
He'll have a kidnapped child behind him.
Right, he really will. It'll be something like that.
I thought it would. Never mind.
No, there was that joke that almost was going to happen.
I don't even want to know.
I'm pulling back. I'm pulling out of that one.
All right, Sean pulling out, we'll just go ahead and finish. When you pull out, it's over.
Just
All
like
right,
his
so so that's thanks for listening to this story. Do you remember when we used to have a point and we had to watch things we said? Now it doesn't fucking matter anymore.
Oh,
Like we
those
got some
were
stuff
not
you
the
can
good old
buy, but it's small and who cares? So we're just going to do what we want to do. All right. So thanks you guys for listening to Story Studio Podcast. We will see you next time.
Thanks to our live audience.
Thanks to our live audience. They were really lively today. And we'll see you next time with Jono. Bye, everybody.
Peace out.